Well, hello there. Happy No Nonsense November, day 26. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. And every day this month, we are doing a tool. I'm sharing a tool that I've used throughout my life and kind of old now. So I've gotten a lot of experience using different tools. I spent decades in corporate America and double the decades in running my own businesses and doing things like that, all different industries. And over those years, I've had the opportunity to try and learn all kinds of different strategies, all different tools, all different techniques, all kinds of shortcuts, all kinds of cheat sheets. Today's tool is what I call checklists. Now, checklists can be forms or process checklists or worksheets or play sheets, any kind of a form or tool, a document that you use that helps you remember to follow a process or to document a process or keep track of what you're doing. And we've talked about documenting and writing things down a lot during this tools, right? Obviously, I have a propensity and a love of writing things down. Why? Because I know we're human beings, and if we don't write things down, we will never remember what we've said or done before. We think we will, but we never will. We talked about it from the beginning of the this month. I think like the 3rd of November, we talked about journaling. The 9th or so, we talked about goals and the importance of writing them down. We talked about flip books. We've talked about audits, problem solving, decision making. All of those things require that we write things down or find some way to document them on the computer. So today, I'm going to talk about checklists and the importance of having and creating your own checklist. Now, I will say this is one of my secret success strategies to making things work out right for me. Once I go through all the challenge of figuring out how to do something and get it to give me the result I want, one of the first things I do is I write down the process, I analyze that process, I optimize that process, and then I create some kind of a form or a check sheet to make sure that I follow that process every time. For example, I make videos every day, video content. Now, I have a checklist of what I do with those videos after I create them. If I just talked to myself and never shared the videos and never followed my checklist and put them out in the world, what would be the point? There would be no point. It would just be me talking to myself. So I have a checklist and a cheat sheet for that process. Every process that's important to me, I have a checklist or a cheat sheet or a form or a data collection unit either on the computer, or there's apps to do all these things nowadays as well. So anything that's worthwhile to you is probably worth documenting. At least that's my opinion. If your life's worth living, it's worth documenting. It's worth leaving a record of it so people can learn from you. A couple of key things to remember. Now, I come from, and we talked about audits yesterday, and I think I mentioned that I come from the corporate world of quality and audits and assessments and proof and government interaction, which means a lot of, you have to prove everything that you say that you're going to do. You have to prove that you did it by documenting it. That's how you do audits. You take a trail of the proof that people have that they did something in order to verify that they've actually done what they say they're going to do. Now, proof has to be written down. We have a saying in the corporate world and in an auditing world that if it isn't documented, it didn't get done. Even if you know it got done and you do it every day in your business, you've done it every day in your business, you've done it that way forever, and you always do it, if you don't document it, it's proof according to regulatory agencies that it didn't get done. Think of a court trial and contracts and laws and things. If you don't have proof of a written agreement between the parties, guess what? It means that it didn't happen. So I learned that the hard way with a partnership agreement. We had a verbal partnership agreement, big bad mistake, biggest mistake I ever made, and we didn't have it in writing. We didn't have the agreement in writing because we trusted one another, and I learned some very hard lessons that way, that even people that you think you can trust, you can't necessarily trust, so you better write it down. That includes family. Sad to say, but it includes most of our families. I didn't think it would happen in my family, but it did, so it can happen in anyone's. So, over my 47 years of businesses and over a quarter century in corporate America, I have created hundreds, if probably closer to 1,000 different worksheets, checklists, forms, documents that are data collection, actually information gathering devices in my career and in my life, and they've always made my life easier. It doesn't take that long to create a system or a way of capturing information or keeping track of things. Think of if you want to lose weight. What do? You pick a frequency that you're going to weigh yourself, and then you write it down. If you don't write it down, you totally forget, because our minds like to make us forget things that we don't want to think about. If you gain 2 pounds and then another 2 pounds and another 2 pounds. But if you wrote it down, every Sunday you weigh yourself and you see every week that you're gaining 2 pounds, you're not going in the direction you want to go usually, unless of course your goal is to gain weight. I wish that was my goal some days. Now today's Thanksgiving here in the United States, so we don't even think about weight on Thanksgiving. Birthdays and holidays, there are no calories. At least that's my belief. Okay, so it's important that you come up with checklists. Number one, for yourself and for your own results, and to track and see what you're doing. And number two, for proof of if you're involved with a business, or if other people that are at risk or anything like that, you want to make sure that you actually document things and have proof. We always had to document processes for the USDA when they would come in and audit every couple of years. Now we had a USDA inspector in our business every single day, working, or watching us work, which is weird but fun, because we had great USDA inspectors. But we also, in addition to that, they would watch and make sure that we documented our processes as we did them. So with food preparation, you have a lot of processes and systems and things that you document, and they would literally watch us throughout our production process and verify that we checked temperatures and documented the temperature right when we took it, that we checked the freezer temperature, that we did our cleanup procedures, and then we documented that we did them. All kinds of stuff like that. So maybe that's where my love of checklists comes from, and my love of proof and writing things down. But it's important because we can use those type of activities for our own betterment, as well as for our business, or to prove that we're doing our job and things. It's another thing that I just thought of this now. I always, when I worked in corporate America, I always walked around with a little blue notebook. They were about 6 by 9, and I always had a blue notebook in my hand. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I knew with all the people that I interacted with during the day, if I didn't write things down, I wasn't going to remember the things that I said that I would do. And so I started doing it as a follow-up checklist for me. And it was really powerful, because I became known as a person in my corporate career that always followed up and always did what I said I was going to do. I always did what I said I was going to do. And I did that with a little blue notebook, walking around with a pen and a blue notebook. And whenever something came up and we had a discussion, I wanted to take a note of something that was going on in one of the departments, or when I wanted to remember that I was going to call or follow up or do something, I would write it in my notebook. And if it was something I needed to follow up on, I literally made a little square checkbox in front of it. And then I would go through that, whenever I had an opportunity, or at the end of every day for sure, and I would look at the things that had little open check boxes by them, and then I would add them to my, I'd do them right away, or I'd add them to my schedule for the next week or so, to guarantee and make sure that I would get back to follow up, do what I said I was going to do on each and every item that came up. I was working for a giant industrial bakery when I started doing this, and there were so many things, and I had so many people reporting to me and so many different things going on. It was my way of surviving and thriving in that particular environment. I highly recommend it. It's not that hard. If you ever see me on the street or walking around or something, and you stop me, you say, hey, do you have a checklist on you or a notebook on you? I guarantee 100% that I will have a notebook on me. Even when I'm walking out in nature, I always have at least a little notebook in my backpack or in my pocket or something, because that's how important it is to me that we keep track of the things that are important to us. You can use yours to keep track of, or write down anything you want in it. I had personal things in it. I had things with my kids in it. I had, important things for my children. I had important things for my spouse. I had work related, and anything that I needed to make sure got done went in that notebook. It was kind of like a little documented journey of my life. And actually, I think I just threw them away as I moved out of my house last year. I think I finally let them go to the burn pile and burned them, because it's been a lot of years since I worked in corporate America, but I had saved all of them from one job. So I had a whole box of like 20 of these little blue notebooks. And if I wanted to, I could go back and I could read, and I could actually see a history of what I had done in that job. It was also really handy when it came to the performance review or appraisal time, or if I had a disagreement with somebody in my family. They would say, "Oh, well, you said this and that," and I'd be like, "Oh, well, let me just look. Let me take," and then I would look in my notebook and I'd see what I wrote down about that, and I'd be like, "Well, this is what I wrote down about. This is how I remember it," and then it would be like cleared up usually. So checklists. Do you use them? How can you use them? And then what do you do with them and the information from them? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. I just decided right now we are going to remember that it's up to us to interpret that information, because I learned over my years of data collection and statistical analysis and things that you can take any set of data and you can make it look any way you want. I'm going to leave that right there. Am I saying you can lie with statistics? Yes. Am I saying statistics and data can show when people are lying? Yes, absolutely, positively. So tomorrow we will talk about, let me see what I say we're going to talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about data analysis and critical thinking, because I think that that ties right in with checklists and collecting them. Have you ever used checklists? Share in the comments below how and if you've used checklists, or something you'd like a checklist about, because if you ask me, I might have one for it. Have an awesome day. It's Thanksgiving here in the United States, so I'm going to go start cooking. And I will be with you tomorrow with, of course, I already gave it out of the bag. We're going to talk about data analysis and critical thinking. What you do with the information once you have it on a checklist. All right. Have an awesome day.